Hey, this is Conor with Conquest HP, and this video is a quick review of this book here, Manthropology by Peter McAllister. I just finished this book today. It's a pretty fun read. It's fun and frustrating, to be honest. It's basically like an anthropological and historical look at kind of where I'm going to say mankind. Mankind has come from and where we are now. And I say mankind because it specifically compares ancient men to modern men, ancient men or men throughout history to modern men. Like I said, it's a really interesting book. There's a lot of really fun, cool stories and anecdotes and historical data in here. There's a lot of fun stats like just random feats of strength and random uh, uh, acts of military prowess or something like that you can cite and that you can tell your brothers and your friends and your dads and all of that stuff about. Good conversation points for sure. Um, the frustrating part about it is it's essentially like any other pop science book in that it tries to take a very simple, very specific, very cherry picked facts, and it tries to then extrapolate broad themes from those facts. So, for example, it'll take something like it'll take like an example of a sustained march of Nero's legions in ancient Rome, and it'll take that sustained march with their heavier packs and their incredible rate of speed as they cross the country, and it'll compare that to what we expect in our modern special forces or modern military now, and it'll conclude that the ancient warriors were much more capable, much more physically capable in that regard. Now that may or may not be true. To be honest, like these are historical records. Historical records are never perfect, even when they're 10 years old, let alone 2-3 thousand year old records. So you have to take all that stuff with a grain of salt. If they say Nero's legions marched whatever it is 50 miles a day with a 100-pound pack on everyone's back, you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt. But uh, even if you wanted to use that as a comparison, as Peter McAllister very annoyingly does many times over and over again, to be honest, he'll take that to mean, well, they accomplished this feat, and in basic training today we only expect our soldiers to do X amount instead of what Nero's legions did, and therefore these ancient men were stronger and better conditioned and hardier. And he just draws all these insane extrapolations from a really specific and questionable data point. So that part is really frustrating, to be honest, because it's not really useful. Like, if we, maybe let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this example that Nero's legions really were physically superior in that way. Fine, I will grant you that. That's I'm okay with that. Um, but then to take that to mean that they were stronger, that they were more ferocious, that they were more capable warriors, that they were better men, they're just it's just a lot of extrapolating, and it's not really based on the facts and figures and everything that he's providing in the book. So those things are kind of frustrating. Again, really, like, I found it almost kind of inspirational, motivational, and in some ways, just reading that stuff though. I'm kind of lean more towards like the sections that he has titled Brawn and Battle and those kinds of things, where he's really looking at like the strength differences, military capacity, combative capacity, all that kind of stuff between the ancients and now. Those are just my particular interests, I guess, in this book. Um, but it's really fun to read accounts of ancient strongmen and ancient warriors and what these people could accomplish, and kind of the circumstances they accomplished these things with, because a lot of the time these ancients, they didn't have a fraction of the resources what we have now, obviously, even just in terms of food available to them, but somehow they still accomplished these amazing things. So it's really fun to read those things. I mean, it's almost kind of inspirational to hear that like the Ottoman Turks used used a recurve bow that what was the number he cited? It was something ludicrous, like a 220-pound draw weight. If you don't know anything about archery, I shoot a 50-pound recurve bow, and when I bought the 50-pound recurve bow, the people at the archery shop, even though I'm a bigger guy, they said, "Oof, you're not gonna like that. Like you're not gonna anything over 40 pounds is a lot of work, and it's gonna take the fun out of shooting for you." So to think that these, these by my standards half-starved smaller people from the ancient steppe somehow were drawing 220-pound bows is just absolutely insane. And the inspirational part of that is that I can look at it and think, oh, whoa, I'm in that regard, I am a bitch compared to what they could do with a bow, right? So it immediately changes my perspective when I'm doing my shooting. Like when I go to do my shooting later today, it's going to totally change my mindset about am I tired? Can I do a couple more reps? Is my form breaking down? Do I care? And to be honest, sorry, to be honest, right now I feel like I'm just going to push harder because I know that the ancients could do that, and I think it is absolutely insane they could do that, but I want it, like I want to be able to do that. And knowing that other men have done it, it's kind of uplifting in that regard. I will say that I I pretty much bought this book out of confirmation bias. It's called Manthropology. I like that already. The subtitle is The Science of Why the Modern Male is Not the Man He Used to Be. And I saw that subtitle, and that fit perfectly with my my worldview. I think that modern men are falling away from being the amazing men that we have been in the past. Actually, I don't think that part is particularly controversial. In many ways, like we're bigger now. Our average height is bigger. Our average weight is higher. But I mean, apart from that, we just don't stack up in lots of ways. So I bought this book wanting to believe in that premise, and I would say that this book, it kind of proves it, but in another way, it kind of pushes you away because I just realized that the evidence that we have to use to compare these things is, that anthropological evidence and historical evidence is just, it's not the same thing as having like a scientific study, that really unequivocally shows that this guy can bench this much, this guy can bench that much. So therefore, it's like if you're using a historical record to determine how strong men were in the past, it's a historical record. So what's to stop a historian 3,000 years ago from exaggerating a little bit when they're recording this, and then it getting exaggerated over time? You know what I mean? So in that regard, it actually ended up making me a little more skeptical of some of the claims, even though I still believe in that premise. One other thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way with this book was just I don't even know if like the pop, I don't know if calling it like pop culture is the right way to put it, but it's like it seems like someone edited it. I'm not sure if Peter McAllister wrote it this way in the first place, but it seems like someone edited it like we have to make this more palatable for the average modern reader, and we have to make it more punchy and more, make it leap off the page a little bit more to make it more interesting. And that makes it less scientific, I think, and I think it takes some validity away from the arguments. Just like if you read the book, you'll see what I mean. But there are lots of sections where the author is disrespectful to, like, not. I don't care if you disrespect modern men in general, because again, I totally agree in that premise that we're not what we used to be. But respecting combat veterans, or disrespecting combat veterans and that kind of thing, for example. Like he'll finish one sentence saying, well, I don't want to imply that I don't respect modern Navy SEALs. And then the next sentence will finish with, but compared to the ancients, modern Navy SEALs are pussies. And that obviously rubs me the wrong way. Like, I'm not a Navy SEAL. I'm not a combat vet or anything like that. But I don't really think that you should diminish the sacrifice and diminish the balls, honestly, that it takes for someone to be in a combat experience in modern times or in ancient times. Like, it's just, it kind of takes away from your connection with the author and with their story, to be honest. Especially when it's coming, that kind of sense. If that kind of sentiment is coming from Jocko Willink, who is a combat veteran and seems like one of the toughest people that's ever lived. If it's coming from him, that's one thing. If it's coming from a guy that sat at a desk to write a book, and that's his claim to toughness, I just don't respect that at all. So, like I said, it's an interesting book. It's not a very long book. What do we got? About 300 pages. It's not a very long book. It's very interesting. There are a lot of moments that or a lot of stats, historical records, that kind of thing you'll read about, and you'll sit there for a second and think about it, and you think, that's pretty cool. It's cool to know where we came from in these various different aspects of manliness, manhood, and humanity, to be honest. So it is interesting, and it's worthwhile for that part of it. I think that the book's shortcomings are primarily just that the evidence we're using to compare it's weaker evidence, just in that it's anthropological and historical. And I think that the other weakness of the book is just kind of the delivery. I think the way that the author chose to build his arguments actually weakened his own arguments if you look at them closely. Now, the other thing, there's the wrap-up section of this book, and the press quote on the front page. The press quote on the front page finishes with an eye-opener and a bracing call to arms. Now, I wish that were true, and the final section of the book is something along the lines of, "Can we be heroes?" And you just don't get that. You don't get that. You don't get that message from the book. Like, there's no part at it. There's no part in the book where you're looking at it and thinking, "Oh, this provides an interesting avenue that I could explore to become better myself," or "Here's a way that I can redeem myself according to my ancestors," or "I can do honor to to the strength of my ancestors," or whatever, or here's a possible way that the author is going to use some evidence that I can help to reclaim some of that past glory. But they never really get to that point. They always just kind of leave it at modern men suck and ancient men were better. Deal with it. And I don't like that. I like that it gives me the perspective to know that some men in history absolutely annihilated me in terms of archery or in terms of combat ability or whatever it is. But I think the overall message should be, let's try to regain that. Let's try to gain that back. Let's try to make ourselves atone for our weakness and kind of reclaim some of that honor according to our ancestors' standards. I don't see why we can't do that. I can get better at archery. I can keep getting stronger. So can you. We can see where that takes us, right? It's an interesting book. It's definitely worth the read. It's a fun read. It'll give you lots of fun stats to bring out at parties or talking with your bros or whatever. But just to take all the arguments with a grain of salt, and I think you'll see what I mean. I'm going to do a written review of this book as well at conquesthp.com. You can find the links below. If you want to buy the book, I'll put an affiliate link for Amazon below. That essentially, if you click that and you buy the book or you buy anything else through that link, it's going to benefit me. It's going to allow me to do more videos like this, but it's not going to cost you a dime to do so. So please support in that way. And yeah, just check out conquesthp.com, the other videos on this channel, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.